My girlfriend ghosted me right after meeting my parents. She thought she got away with it. Until my mom called and said, "There's something you should know about that night." I'd been with Emma for just under a year when I finally asked her to meet my parents. We weren't rushing into anything, but it felt like the right next step. We were spending more weekends together. She'd met a couple of my cousins in passing, and we even talked about traveling together later in the year. So when I brought up dinner with my parents, she said sure, without hesitation. We planned a Sunday evening meal at my parents' house. Casual, low pressure. My mom cooked her go-to baked ziti, and my dad had a bottle of red wine he'd been saving for a special dinner, which apparently this qualified as. I was a little nervous, but mostly excited. Dinner went about as well as I could have asked for. My dad cracked his usual awkward jokes, like he always does when he's trying to be funny, but ends up embarrassing everyone in the room. And my mom played the warm host, asking Emma about her work, hobbies, and family. Emma responded politely. She smiled, laughed when expected, made good eye contact, but something felt just a little forced. I couldn't put my finger on it. She wasn't rude, not at all. But the way she held her smile too long or tilted her head like she was listening when she wasn't, it just didn't feel like the Emma I knew. At one point, she excused herself to take a call in the hallway. I didn't think much of it at the time. Her job can be demanding, but when she came back, she was quieter. Not upset, just a little withdrawn. I figured maybe the call was work-related and stressful. After dinner, we said our goodbyes and drove back to her apartment. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said, "Yeah, your parents are nice," followed by a vague, "I'm just tired." I didn't push it. We kissed goodnight, and I drove home. The next few days felt off. She wasn't texting me the same way. Normally, she'd respond quickly. Even if she was at work, I'd get a quick, "I'll text you back later." Now, hours would go by. Conversations that used to stretch on for paragraphs turned into cold, one-liner responses. I'd ask to make plans, and she'd suddenly be really swamped or feeling off. It wasn't just one excuse, it was a string of them. By Thursday, I started feeling like I was the only one trying. On Friday, I didn't hear from her at all. Saturday came and went. Sunday too. It felt like I had vanished from her radar. The confusion hit me harder than I expected. I kept replaying everything in my head. Was it something my parents said? Did my mom ask something too personal? Did my dad's jokes make her uncomfortable? Or was it me? Did I pressure her into something she wasn't ready for? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but after nearly a year of dating, to go from planning weekends together to total radio silence overnight, it didn't make sense. I almost started drafting a long message to confront her, but something stopped me. I didn't want to come off as desperate. Maybe she needed space, maybe something happened, or maybe something else was going on. And then, just as I was sitting with all that silence, my mom called. When I picked up the phone, my mom didn't start with her usual warm tone. Instead, there was a pause. "Hey," she said, almost carefully. "I've been thinking about something, and I'm not sure if I should bring it up." I was already on edge, so I sat up straighter. "What's going on?" She hesitated again. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but after what you told me about Emma going quiet. "Well, there's something I didn't mention after dinner." That got my attention. "You remember when Emma took that call in the hallway?" "Yeah." "Well," she sighed. "I happened to go out to the porch to bring in the cushions before it rained, and I passed by her while she was on the phone. She didn't see me. She was facing the other way, by the coat closet. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I heard her say something that really bothered me. I felt my stomach tighten. What did she say?" My mom lowered her voice, as if she was still debating whether she should even be telling me. She said something like, "Yeah, I'll be done with this by the weekend. I just needed to make it look real for now." I didn't speak right away. I didn't know what to say. "She didn't say your name," my mom added quickly. "And maybe, it was about work or some personal situation that had nothing to do with you. That's why I didn't mention it earlier. But when you said she hasn't called or texted at all, everything started clicking into place in my head. The weird vibe after dinner. Her pulling away. The complete ghosting right after the weekend. That line, 'I just needed to make it look real,' stuck in my head like glue. I thanked my mom and told her I'd call her back later. Then I just sat there. To be honest, I didn't know what I was feeling. Part of me didn't want to believe it. Emma had always been straightforward with me, or so I thought. She wasn't overly affectionate or clingy, but she was consistent. I never got the sense she was pretending. If anything, she was usually the one reminding me to be honest with what you feel. So what was this? I tried texting Emma again, just a simple, "Hey, can we talk?" and got nothing. I waited an hour. Then I called. Straight to voicemail. I spent the next 2 days flipping between denial and frustration. I didn't want to accuse her without giving her the chance to explain, but how could I ignore what my mom heard? By Tuesday night, I gave up on waiting and drove to her apartment. I knew it might be crossing a line, but I needed some sort of closure. When I knocked, no one answered. I knocked again. Just when I was about to walk away, the door opened. She looked surprised, like she hadn't expected me to show up. And she didn't look thrilled, either. "Oh," she said. Hey, I replied. "You've been hard to reach." She glanced back into the apartment, then stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "Yeah, I've just had a lot going on." I looked at her for a second. "Did I do something wrong?" She paused. "No, you didn't." There was silence. Then she finally added, "I think I just needed space." I wasn't ready for all that. The dinner, meeting your parents, everything felt like too much. I nodded slowly. "You could have said something." She looked away. "Yeah, I should have." She didn't deny anything. She didn't mention the phone call. And I didn't bring it up. Not yet. I just stood there, trying to process who this person really was. Standing there outside her apartment, I realized that the Emma in front of me didn't match the person I thought I'd spent the last year with. I asked her plainly, "So were you ever actually in this? Or was I just part of something else you had going on?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, "Look, I wasn't faking everything, if that's what you're trying to say. But I guess I kept telling myself I was more into it than I actually was." That line, asterisk more into it than I actually was asterisk, just hung there between us. Not angry, not cruel, just indifferent. And maybe that's what hit hardest, her complete lack of emotion. I said, "My mom overheard you on the phone that night. You said something like, 'I'll be done with this by the weekend.' I just needed to make it look real." Her face didn't change. No shock, no denial, just a slight exhale through her nose, like she had expected this to come up eventually. "Yeah," she said. "I was talking to a friend. It was complicated, and I didn't know how to explain it to you. So explain it now." She leaned against the railing and looked away. I was kind of seeing someone before we got serious. We weren't exclusive when we met, but things were messy. Then I jumped into this with you, and I thought it'd help me move on. And for a while it did. But that other person never really went away. I know it sounds terrible, and it is, but I thought if I met your parents, maybe I'd feel something deeper. Like maybe I'd finally close the door on all that. But I didn't. I felt like I was hearing a confession that was rehearsed. Like this wasn't the first time she'd had to untangle herself from a situation she had no business being in. "You could have just been honest," I said. "You didn't have to ghost me like I was some experiment." She finally looked at me. "You're right. I handled it badly. I didn't know how to leave without hurting you, so I just avoided it." "And that's supposed to be better?" "No," she admitted. "But it's what I did." There wasn't much else to say after that. She didn't cry. I didn't yell. We just stood there for a moment, both knowing this was it. I said, "Take care of yourself," and turned to leave. As I walked back to my car, I wasn't angry in the way I thought I'd be. I wasn't heartbroken either. I was disappointed, sure, but mostly, I felt relieved. Relieved that I hadn't gotten more tangled in her mess. Relieved that I'd trusted my gut, and even more, that my mom had trusted hers. Later that night, I called my mom back. I told her everything. "You were right," I said. "She wasn't in it for the long haul. You saw what I couldn't." My mom was quiet for a second. Sometimes we want to believe in people more than they deserve. But I'm proud of you for facing it. Since then, I've tried not to dwell on Emma. I don't stalk her social media, and I haven't tried to keep tabs. But every now and then, I catch myself wondering how many people she's making it look real with now. I learned a lot from that relationship. Mostly about paying attention to actions, not just words. And about listening to the people who know you well enough to see what you can't. What would you have done in my place? Would you have confronted her sooner? Or walked away the moment she started pulling back? Let me know. Curious how others would have handled it.